level of emaciation for this child was absolutely apparent with the state of her bones, her skin, her weight, her hair. It couldn't not have been.
Before we begin, just know that every case you are about to hear is real. Every detail has been documented and verified. In 2026, 13 women were sentenced for crimes that made prosecutors pause, made judges choose their words carefully, and made juries deliberate with the weight of the world on their shoulders. This is what actually happened. Case 1. Julie Miller. The 17th of April, 2024. Morrisville, West Virginia. Deputies responded to a home on Cameo Road after a grandmother called in to report that a child was in cardiac arrest. When officers entered the bathroom, they found a teenager lying on a foam pad on the floor. She weighed 58 pounds. She was 5 feet and 3 inches tall. Deputies described her condition as skeletal. Her name was Kennedy Miller. She was 14 years old, and she had been living inside that house, essentially invisible to the outside world, for 3 years. Her mother, Julie Miller, had pulled Kennedy from school in February 2021. The email she sent to the school superintendent read like a letter from a responsible parent expressing legitimate safety concerns about COVID. What followed those few sentences was something else entirely. Kennedy had been outside the house roughly 2 times over a 4-year period. She received no medical care of any kind for at least 4 years. In March 2023, a state trooper became concerned enough to drive directly to the CPS office in person to file a welfare referral. He did not call it in, he went there himself. GPS data, call logs, and audio recordings all confirmed he was physically present at that office. The Department of Human Services said they never received the referral. No caseworker ever visited the home. 13 months after that referral disappeared, Kennedy was dead. The prosecutor stated in court that Kennedy had been lying on that bathroom floor for 4 to 5 days before anyone reported her condition. In the last 2 days of her life, the teenager told the adults around her that she wanted to die. She said it out loud, and nobody called anyone. On the 21st of November, 2025, Julie Miller pleaded guilty. On the 25th of February, 2026, she was sentenced to 15 years to life, the maximum sentence allowed under West Virginia law. Kennedy's older sister delivered a statement to the court. She told the judge that a piece of sunlight had been ripped out of the earth the day Kennedy died. Julie Miller wept before the judge and said she loved her baby and that Kennedy was her world. The judge replied directly. He told Miller that Kennedy deserved a mother who provided, at the bare minimum, enough food that her daughter's body did not eat itself. As of 2026, Julie Miller is serving her sentence. Kennedy's grandmother, Donna Stone, is awaiting trial on related charges. A welfare referral that vanished. A trooper who did everything right. A system that failed a child who was wasting away inside a house on Cameo Road. Case 2. Kouri Richins. The 4th of March, 2022. Thomas, Utah. At 3:23 inches the morning, a woman was screaming. She said her husband was cold to the touch. Paramedics drove out to Saddleback Drive and rushed inside. They found 39-year-old Eric Richins lying in his bed. They performed CPR for as long as they could. He was already gone. Eric Richins was a stonemason, a co-owner of C&E Stonemasonry, a father of 3 boys. By every account, he was a hard-working, family-oriented man who had no idea that the person sleeping beside him had been studying how to kill him. His wife, Kouri Richins, told investigators he must have died in his sleep. She wept. She grieved publicly. She leaned into her role as the grieving widow. And then she did something that nobody in that investigation could quite prepare for. She wrote a children's book. The book was called Are You With Me? A story about grief. On the dedication page, she called Eric her amazing husband and a wonderful father. She then went on local television. She did interviews. She smiled for cameras. She promoted her book while detectives were quietly running toxicology results in the background. Those results came back and they changed everything. Eric Richins did not die in his sleep. He had approximately 5 times the lethal dose of fentanyl in his system. It had not been injected. It had been ingested. It had been slipped into a Moscow Mule cocktail that Corey prepared for him on the night he died. But here is where this case becomes something else entirely. That was not her first attempt. 3 weeks before his death, on Valentine's Day, Eric became violently ill after eating a sandwich Corey had prepared for him. He survived, and he did something remarkable. He told his sisters. He told them directly that he believed Corey had tried to poison him on Valentine's Day. He named her. He was afraid of her, and yet he stayed. Investigators began to pull the thread. What they found on Corey's phone was damning beyond anything her defense team could explain away. She had acquired the fentanyl through a former housekeeper. When she made the request, she did not ask for fentanyl by name. She asked for what she called the Michael Jackson stuff, a reference to propofol, which Michael Jackson fatally overdosed on in 2009, suggesting she had done her research. Her phone also showed searches that no innocent grieving wife would have any reason to make. She searched for luxury prisons for the rich. She searched for whether the FBI could find deleted messages. Neither of those are things you Google when your husband dies unexpectedly in his sleep. Then came the money. Corey had altered Eric's life insurance policies without his knowledge. She was named to collect $2 million. At the same time, she was drowning in over $2 million in personal debt. The motive was sitting in black and white inside a filing cabinet, and she had put it there herself. And it still gets worse. After she was arrested and placed in jail, investigators found a 6-page handwritten letter inside her cell. It became known in court as the Walk the Dog letter. In it, Corey appeared to be instructing her mother on how to feed a false narrative to family members and keep the story straight. She had anticipated this. She had planned for it. She wrote it down. On the 16th of March, 2026, after a 3-week trial, the jury deliberated for approximately 3 hours. That is not a long time for a murder trial. They came back with guilty verdicts across the board. First-degree aggravated murder, attempted aggravated murder for the Valentine's Day poisoning, insurance fraud, forgery. As of May 2026, Kouri Richins is awaiting formal sentencing. She faces a mandatory minimum of 25 years to life, without the possibility of parole. She also faces 26 additional felony charges in a completely separate case, still working its way through the courts. But the detail that investigators say still lingers over this case has nothing to do with the toxicology report, or the insurance policy, or even the letter. It is the image of Kouri Richins sitting under studio lights, smiling into a camera, talking about grief and love and what it means to lose someone, while her husband's family was still burying him. She sold a bedtime story to grieving children while she was the reason there was grief to begin with. Some people run after they kill. Some people hide. Kouri Richins went on television. Case 3. Latoshia Daniels. The 4th of April, 2019. Collierville, Tennessee. Before we get to what happened that night, you need to understand one thing about who Latoshia Daniels was professionally. She was a licensed clinical social worker. She was a certified anger management specialist. She ran her own practice. She sat across from people in pain, and she helped them learn how to control their rage, manage their impulses, and make better decisions when their emotions were overwhelming them. She was the expert. And on the night of the 4th of April, 2019, she drove 3 hours to Memphis with a gun she had purchased that same afternoon, walked to a man's front door, and shot him 5 times. Broads Perry was 36 years old. He was the executive pastor at Mississippi Boulevard Christian Church in Memphis, one of the most prominent black churches in the entire region. He was married to a woman named Tabitha Perry. He also had a secret. For 2 years, he had been conducting an affair with Latoshia Daniels, a woman he had met through his former church in Little Rock, Arkansas. That afternoon, Perry sent Daniels a message through a disappearing message app. The message was short and final. He told her he thought their time was up. Daniels later told investigators that she became suicidal after reading it. But instead of calling a crisis line, instead of reaching out to any of the professional resources she spent her career directing other people toward, she went to a gun store. She purchased a 9mm Ruger pistol, and then she drove. She arrived in Memphis and met Perry at a cigar lounge. Then she followed him back to his apartment in Collierville. where his wife Tabitha was home. All three of them sat together inside that apartment for 40 minutes. Tabitha Perry did not know about the affair. She knew Daniels casually from church, from tennis, from dance classes. She believed this was a pastoral visit of some kind. When the visit ended and they walked toward the front door, Perry refused to walk Daniels to her car. That refusal is what prosecutors believe triggered what came next. Tabitha turned around on the stairway and saw Daniels raise a gun. The medical examiner found 5 bullets in Broads Perry's body. 3 abdominal wounds, 1 gunshot to the head, 1 to the buttock. All of them fatal. Tabitha was shot in the shoulder. She survived. A police affidavit recorded what Daniels reportedly shouted during the shooting. "You broke my heart." That was her explanation. He broke her heart. The jury deliberated for approximately 2.5 hours on the 24th of February, 2026. They convicted Daniels of second-degree murder. She was sentenced to 20 years in prison. Judge Jennifer Fitzgerald addressed this directly, and her words deserve to be heard clearly. She said, "A broken heart does not justify someone dying." As of 2026, Latoshia Daniels is serving her 20-year sentence in Tennessee. Her defense team has filed a motion for a new trial. A woman who built her career teaching people not to do what she did, undone completely by the one thing she never learned to manage in herself. Case 4. Neiana Allen Bailey, the 8th of August, 2023. Seattle, Washington. At 3:20 inches the morning, Amari Guetta was sitting in his Toyota Prius on 1st Avenue South. He was between shifts. He was 52 years old. He had moved from Ethiopia to build something in America, and by every measure he had done exactly that. He worked 2 jobs, a rideshare driver at night, an airport employee during the day. He had been doing this for 14 years. He was supporting his wife and 2 children. He was sitting quietly in his car. Surveillance footage from a nearby bank captured what happened. An 18-year-old woman approached the driver's side. She opened the door. There was a struggle that lasted roughly 10 seconds. Guetta stepped out of the vehicle and stood up on the sidewalk. She shot him. He fell. He never moved again. Her name was Neiana Allen Bailey. She drove away in his Prius. Over the next 2.5 days, Allen Bailey used the dead man's car like it was her own. She drove to visit her mother. She smoked marijuana at Rainier Beach. She drove to Kent for a hair appointment. As she drove, she tossed Guetta's personal belongings out the window, including his phone. She was not caught through a massive investigation. She was caught because of a parking complaint. Police found the Prius sitting illegally in South Lake Union, ran the plates, and waited. When Allen Bailey came back to the car, officers were there. In her police interview, she made statements that prosecutors would later use as the centerpiece of their case. She admitted that Amari Guetta never struck her, never kicked her, never physically assaulted her in any way. She told investigators she probably would have been able to get away from him without firing the gun. Probably. The gun itself had its own history. It was the same weapon she had used 2 weeks earlier to assault a state transportation worker who had caught her spray painting graffiti. She had fired it before. She knew what it did. She used it anyway. On the 27th of March, 2026, Neiana Allen Bailey was sentenced to 20 years in prison. At the sentencing, Guetta's daughter spoke to the court. She said something so heartbreaking that the room went still. She said she wants to become a rideshare driver when she grows up, so that someone might harm her, and she can see her father again. A 14-year legacy of hard work. A life ended in 10 seconds. A daughter willing to walk into danger just to feel close to him again. As of 2026, Allen Bailey is serving her sentence in a Washington State correctional facility. Upon release, she will be required to complete mandatory mental health and substance abuse treatment. Case 5. Rebecca Auborn.
Hey, y'all, how's it going? Becca, is that you? Yeah. How are you doing?
Good.
Good. Hanging in. You might not reach in there for me.
No, that's fine.
Hon, I think the last time I looked up your name, you had a warrant. So I'm just going to put you in the...
Cancel.
It wasn't?
Officer Hobbs.
Okay, I'm just going to put you in the back of the car and we're...
The 13th of December, 2022, Columbus, Ohio. A 61-year-old man survived something that should have killed him. His name was Richard Bixler. He had met a woman, and at some point during that encounter, he was dosed with drugs. He lived. He was coherent enough to go to police, and his survival set off a chain of events that would eventually expose a serial killer operating in plain sight in Columbus, Ohio. Rebecca Auborn was 33 years old. The Ohio Attorney General described her method plainly when charges were announced. She met men through various means, drugged them with fentanyl, and then robbed them while they were either incapacitated or already dead. Let me give you the names. Joseph Crumpler was 30 years old. He was found dead of an apparent overdose on the 15th of January, 2023. Robert Snoke was 54. He died on April 1st. Wayne Aiken was 64, a former postal worker. He was pronounced dead on his birthday. His daughter later found women's underwear on his apartment floor and his wallet missing. Guy Renda Jr. was 42. He died on June 17th. 4 men, 6 months, 1 method, 1 woman. Wayne Aiken's daughter, Kristen Crockett, knew something was deeply wrong. She went to Columbus police. A non-emergency operator told her that her father's death was not suspicious. She did not stop. Months before the eventual arrest, Crockett received a tip from someone who said a woman named Becca had killed 4 people. She took that information to authorities. She was turned away again. Court records later revealed that in at least one case, Auborn mixed fentanyl directly into a man's crack pipe during an encounter and then watched him overdose. She did not call for help. She took his vehicle and his debit card. On the 25th of October 2023, the Ohio Attorney General announced the indictment. 4 counts of murder, plus charges of manslaughter, robbery, assault, and multiple drug-related offenses. On the 19th of December 2025, Rebecca Auborn pleaded guilty to 4 counts of murder and 1 count of felonious assault. On the 19th of February 2026, she was sentenced to 4 consecutive life terms. She will not be eligible for parole for 60 years. At sentencing, Kristen Crockett stood and addressed Auborn directly. She told her that her father would never have hurt her, that he was kind, that he was giving, that he was loving. And then she said something that stopped the courtroom. She said she could not bring herself to hate Auborn, and she never would. As of 2026, Rebecca Auborn remains incarcerated. Investigators have stated they believe there may be additional victims. 4 men dead, 1 daughter who refused to stop fighting until someone listened. Before we move on to case 6, I want to take a quick moment to ask you something. We have viewers coming in from all over the world to watch this channel, and that means a lot to us. Drop a comment right now and tell us what country or what state you are watching from. It takes 2 seconds, and it helps us understand who we are actually reaching. We will be reading the comments. Now let us get back into it. Case 6, Polly Murphy. The 8th of November 2023, Clacton-on-Sea, England. James Self had planned everything carefully. He booked a hotel on the Essex coast called the Smuggler's Cove. He packed a present. He drove out to celebrate the woman he loved turning 40 years old. He never left that hotel room on his own 2 feet. James Self was 47 years old. He was a painter, raised in a family of artists. His works captured the marshes of the Thames estuary with a quiet precision that people in the art community recognized immediately. His mother, Ash Smith, described him as gentle and easygoing, a man who always believed in the good in people. That night, prosecutors argued that Polly Murphy flew into a violent rage when James presented her with her birthday gift. What followed lasted 2 hours. She punched him, she kicked him, she stamped on him across his entire body. When paramedics eventually entered that hotel room, they found blood on the walls, on the floor, and on the ceiling. Television cameras captured what Murphy did next. She left the room while James lay motionless on the other side of the door. She bought alcohol. She sent text messages to a former boyfriend. She sent that former boyfriend music on Spotify. On the other side of that door, a man who loved her was dying. 18 hours passed before Polly Murphy called an ambulance. When she finally made that call, she told the operator only that James may have a broken leg. When paramedics arrived and were assessing him, James Self spoke for himself. He told them directly, "No, she has been hitting me. It was one-sided. I did not retaliate." He had 8 fractured ribs, He had severe internal injuries. He had bruising across every part of his body. He had a pre-existing liver condition, and the assault fatally aggravated it. On the 21st of December 2023, James Self died in hospital. His mother was holding him when he went. Investigators later recovered roughly 20,000 text messages that documented what prosecutors described as Murphy's pattern of control and abuse within the relationship. She also had a prior conviction from 2009 for assaulting a former partner. On the 13th of January 2026, the jury deliberated for 14 hours and 26 minutes before returning a unanimous verdict, guilty of murder. On February 4th, Murphy was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 15 years. Weeks before he died, from his hospital bed, James Self sent a text message to his mother. He told her he wanted to fix things and make sure she was okay. He was talking about Murphy. He was still trying to protect her while she left him there to die. James Self died still trying to save the woman who killed him, and that might be the most heartbreaking sentence in this entire video. Case 7. Anna Podworna. August 2010. Derby, England. On the 4th of September 2010, a 10-year-old girl in Poland waited by the phone all day for a call from her mother. It was her birthday. The call never came. It never came because her mother was already dead. She had been dead for days, and the woman who killed her had just gone back to work. Izabela Zablonska was 30 years old. She had moved from Poland to England in 2009, along with her partner, Anna Podworna, hoping to find work and start fresh. Both women found jobs at a turkey processing plant in Derbyshire called Cranberry Foods. Podworna was skilled. She was promoted to a permanent position. She had been trained professionally as a butcher. The relationship had been falling apart for a long time. There was financial strain. There were arguments over alcohol. There was a documented history of violence. In 2008, 2 years before the murder, Podworna had chased Izabela out of their apartment in Poland while holding a large knife. Sometime in late August 2010, Anna Podworna killed Izabela Zablonska. 15 years of decomposition made it impossible for forensic pathologists to establish the exact cause of death. But what happened after the killing was documented in clinical, deliberate detail. Using the professional skills she had developed as a trained butcher, Podworna severed Izabela's body at the L4 vertebra. She cut into the hip bone and lower leg. She bound the remains with tape. She placed both halves into bin liners. She dug a pit nearly 1 meter deep in the back garden of their home. She buried her there, and then she had the area paved over with concrete. She buried her in pieces beneath the garden and poured concrete on top. For 15 years, Anna Podworna lived her life. She had 2 children. She spoke to Izabela's mother and lied to her face. She spoke to police when they came looking and lied to them. She contacted a missing persons charity and lied to them too. Investigators later found that her internet searches during those years included words like murderers, sinners, and prison. They did not include the phrase self-defense, not once. The case broke open in May 2025, 15 years later, when a Polish journalist from Polsat TV arrived at Podworna's door asking questions. Something cracked. She contacted police herself and revealed where the body was buried. On the 10th of February 2026, a jury of 7 women and 5 men found Anna Podworna unanimously guilty of murder. She was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 20 years and 116 days. Among Izabela's remains, investigators found a single earring, the one she always wore. Her daughter, Katarzyna, keeps it in a small box. Katarzyna composed the inscription for her mother's headstone herself. It reads, "For the world, you were just a part. For us, you were the whole world." As of 2026, Anna Podworna is serving her life sentence in a UK women's prison. A daughter who spent 15 years wondering where her mother was, a single earring that outlasted the concrete. Some truths take 15 years to reach the surface, but they always do. Case 8. Loretta Carr. The 18th of October, 2021. Little River Canyon, Alabama. Somewhere in the darkness above a canyon, a woman tied a rope around her own waist, secured it to a metal barrier at the overlook, and then she threw another woman over the edge. Mary Beth Isbell was 37 years old. She was a mother. Her son, Skylar, was 16 years old at the time of her death. She had been living in DeKalb County, Alabama, when she crossed paths with Loretta Carr, a woman connected to her through a shared boyfriend. On the night of the 18th of October 2021, Carr and her 20-year-old daughter, Jessie Kelly, drove to Isbell's home to confront her. Investigators found evidence of a struggle inside the residence. The two women attacked Isbell inside the home, forced her into their vehicle, and drove her to Wolf Creek Overlook at Little River Canyon National Preserve. At the overlook, Carr secured herself to the barrier railing with a rope so that she would not go over the edge. Then she forced Mary Beth Isbell over the railing. Nobody reported Mary Beth Isbell missing until the 27th of December 2021, more than 2 months after her death. Detectives used phone records to piece together her last known movements. For nearly 2 years, the investigation stalled. The case went cold. Then in June 2023, a tip came in. 5 days after receiving that tip, Loretta Carr was arrested. Remains were found at the base of the canyon on June 28th. They were formally identified on the 30th of June 2023. That date would have been Mary Beth Isbell's 39th birthday. Before all of this happened, in 2019, Loretta Carr had posted a photo to her Facebook page of herself and her fiancé, smiling at Little River Canyon. The same overlook, the same railing. She knew that place. Jessie Kelly pleaded guilty to murder and was sentenced to 40 years in prison. On the 5th of February 2026, Loretta Carr pleaded guilty to murder and first-degree kidnapping. She was sentenced to life plus 20 additional years to be served consecutively. Skylar Isbell, Mary Beth's son, was 21 years old at the time of sentencing. He stood up and spoke to the court and to Loretta Carr directly. He said that having to sit there and look her in the eyes and face one of his worst fears was harsh in a way he could not fully describe. He said there were no other words for her. He said he could see evil in her eyes and that she had looked his entire family in the face without any remorse. As of 2026, Carr has filed a motion to withdraw her guilty plea, claiming it was entered under coercion. A hearing was scheduled for the 30th of April, 2026. She posed for photos at that canyon in 2019. She turned it into a grave in 2021, and now she is trying to walk away from the confession. Case 9. Cameren Evans. The 23rd of January, 2023, Tallahassee, Florida. A 3-year-old boy was found unresponsive on the floor of an apartment. His body was still warm when officers arrived. There were no visible signs of trauma, no bruising, no wounds. The toxicology report explained everything. Fentanyl. Enrique Evans was 3.5 years old. His mother, Cameren Evans, had placed him in the care of her former boyfriend, Tony Balcom, more than a year before Enrique died. Balcom was a drug dealer. He kept unsecured narcotics in baggies, in boxes, and in bottles throughout the apartment. There was no attempt to hide them or secure them from a small child. Court records revealed that months before Enrique died, a pill had already been removed from his mouth after he ingested it. This had already happened. Enrique had already been poisoned once, and Cameren Evans knew about it because she purchased her own drugs from Balcom. She knew exactly what kind of apartment she had left her son in. She left him there anyway. Cameren's sister, Shaquana, testified at trial. She told the jury that weeks after Enrique was born, Cameren had called her asking to go to rehab. Cameren had asked her sister to take the baby. Multiple family members had offered to take custody of Enrique over the course of his short life. None of those offers were accepted. None of them stuck. Cameren Evans was charged with aggravated manslaughter of a child. The prosecution argued that she knowingly placed her son in an environment where drugs were both accessible and where he had already been poisoned, and that she chose to leave him there regardless. Her first trial in November 2025 ended in a mistrial. The jury could not agree. In February 2026, she was retried. This time, the jury deliberated for nearly 2 hours and returned a guilty verdict. On the 27th of February 2026, Cameren Evans was sentenced to 19 years in prison, to be followed by 20 years of probation. This was not her first time in a courtroom. In 2013, she had been tried for the murder of Alfred Day in a separate robbery at a Tallahassee motel. She was acquitted after more than 5 hours of deliberation. As of 2026, Evans is serving her sentence. Tony Balcom also faces charges in connection with Enrique's death. His retrial is still pending. She had been in front of a jury before. She walked away the first time. The system does not always miss twice. Case 10. Cathy Logan. The 10th of August, 2023. Peoria, Illinois. It was just after 9 at night at a Phillips 66 gas station on Southwestern Avenue. Two women crossed paths. 30 seconds later, one of them was dying on the pavement. Tanzisha Denise Green was 26 years old. She was born and raised in Peoria. Her father described her as the glue that held the family together. Surveillance footage captured the entire encounter. Green was walking away. She was leaving. Cathy Logan, 55 years old, approached her from behind. A witness testified that she watched Logan deliberately set her purse down on the ground, reach for a weapon, walk toward Green, and stab her once in the chest. Tanzisha Green collapsed. Two women rushed to her side immediately and applied pressure to the wound until officers arrived. She was conscious when paramedics reached her. 40 minutes later, at the hospital, her condition deteriorated rapidly. She died that evening. Cathy Logan fled the scene, but she did something that investigators say they rarely see. She walked away, stopped, turned around, came all the way back, picked the weapon up off the ground, and left again. Every single second of it was on camera. The weapon itself was never recovered. Logan was arrested weeks later at a house on South Warren Street. She had 2 outstanding warrants from separate felony cases at the time of her arrest. At trial, Logan took the stand and claimed self-defense. She testified that Green had dropped a knife and that she had picked it up and used it. The surveillance footage showed nothing of the kind. The jury convicted her of first-degree murder in approximately 90 minutes. The sentencing judge, Steve Kouri, had spent more than 2 decades on the bench. He acknowledged at sentencing that Logan's personal history, which included physical and sexual abuse from childhood, was among the most difficult he had ever encountered in all his years as a judge. But then he turned to the video. He said Logan was not being bullied in that moment. He said if Tanzisha Green had not simply been walking by that gas station that night, they would not be in that courtroom. On the 6th of February 2026, Cathy Logan was sentenced to 45 years in prison. The sentence must be served at 100%. No early release, no parole consideration. As she was being taken out of the courtroom, she turned to her supporters and told them she would be back. 30 seconds, 1 stab wound, a 45-year sentence. Tanzisha Green was just walking by. Case 11. Jessica Barnes Furland. The 3rd of October 2024. West Asheville, North Carolina. He shrugged. That was the last thing Jaquan Bowen did before the gun fired. Jaquan Devin Patrick Bowen was 26 years old. He was a lifelong Asheville resident. He had graduated from Buncombe Community School. He loved music. He loved karaoke. By every account from people who knew him, he was the kind of person who made wherever he was feel lighter. He was in a relationship with Jessica Barnes Furland, a 40-year-old mother who was locked in a custody battle with her ex-husband. On the night of the 3rd of October 2024, both of them had been drinking on the porch of Furland's home. The argument started over an affidavit. Bowen had written one in support of her ex-husband's custody case, questioning Furland's parenting. She found out, and she was furious. Furland went inside and came back out with a .22 caliber revolver. It was roughly 60 years old. She pointed it at Jaquan Bowen's head and pulled the trigger. The gun dry-fired. There was no round in the chamber. Jaquan Bowen looked at the woman pointing a gun at his head, and he shrugged. Furland pulled the trigger a second time. This time the gun discharged. The bullet struck Bowen in the temple. He was rushed to Mission Hospital. He died the next day. Furland called herself and was found pressing paper towels to his wound when officers arrived. She told detectives she had not intended to kill him. She said she just wanted him to take her seriously. She was initially charged with first-degree murder. After consultation with Jaquan Bowen's family, a plea agreement was reached. In February 2026, Furland pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to between 125 and 157 months, which is approximately 10 to 13 years. As of 2026, Jessica Barnes Furland is serving her sentence in the North Carolina Department of Adult Correction. A shrug, a second pull. A life ended on a porch over a custody document. Jaquan Bowen is gone because he was not afraid enough of someone who had every reason to make him afraid. Case 12, Jennifer Johnson, the 18th of April, 2021, Columbia, Missouri. A mother came home to find her 8-month-old baby, bruised, cold to the touch, and unresponsive. As she rushed out the door with her child in her arms, the babysitter asked her one question: "Will I still be paid?" Hannah Kent was 8 months old. Her mother, Lynetta Hill, described her as a happy, healthy baby with no medical issues whatsoever. That evening, Hill had left Hannah and her other children in the care of Jennifer Johnson, a 49-year-old woman from Fayette, Missouri. Hill trusted her. They had been friends for more than a decade. It was the first time Johnson had ever cared for Hannah. Hannah's 13-year-old sister saw the baby alive and in good health at approximately 6 in the evening. Johnson later claimed she put Hannah to bed at 2:15 inches the morning, but phone records contradicted her completely. During the hours she claimed to be sleeping, Johnson had been awake and sending text messages about drugs. A bag found among her belongings tested positive for methamphetamine. At 8:30 the next morning, Lynetta Hill came home and found her daughter. Hannah was rushed to Women's and Children's Hospital and was pronounced dead at 8:45 inches the morning. What the pathologist described at trial was devastating. Multiple contusions on Hannah's skull, damage to the nerves of her spinal cord, hemorrhaging across her brain, fractures to her skull, a fracture to her left orbital plate. Blood found on Johnson's shirt matched Hannah's DNA. The prosecution argued that Jennifer Johnson was the only person with access to Hannah during the window in which those injuries occurred. The defense chose not to call a single witness. Johnson did not take the stand. The jury deliberated for a little over 1 hour. Guilty of second-degree felony murder, 2 counts of first-degree child endangerment. On the 23rd of February, 2026, Jennifer Johnson was sentenced to life in prison. Johnson's daughter-in-law publicly insisted that Johnson would not show remorse for something she did not do. Hannah's mother, Lynetta Hill, addressed the court. She said she constantly replays the moment she handed her daughter to someone she believed was her friend. She said the guilt and the heartbreak are unbearable. As of 2026, Jennifer Johnson is serving a life sentence in the Missouri Department of Corrections. She asked about her pay while a baby was dying in the next room. She asked about the money first. Case 13, Kiara Cotton, November 2021. Vienna, Georgia. 4 reports, 4 chances. 4 times the system looked at a little boy and decided he was safe. Gian was flagged before he was even born. His mother, Keara Sade Cotton, tested positive for drugs twice during her pregnancy. A caseworker's notes later documented that at 3 years old, Gian was not verbal, was still in diapers, and was not being bathed. He was being fed 1 meal a day. His own grandmother called child services and told them she hoped it was not too late. It was already too late. Sometime in November 2021, Cotton said she woke to find Gian not breathing. He was 4 years old. Instead of calling family, instead of doing anything to seek help for her son, she wrapped his small body, kept it in the house for a period of time, and then placed his remains in a shopping bag and inside a shower curtain. She drove to a field behind a shopping center in Cordell and left him there. For 2 months, nobody came looking. When Child Services finally attempted to reach Cotton in January 2022, she would not come to the door. She would not bring her children outside. It was her own family who reported Gian missing after not seeing him for months. Police tracked Cotton down in Crisp County. During questioning, she told investigators where she had left his remains. They found him in a wood line behind a retail strip, behind a Wendy's. The medical examiner could not determine a cause of death due to decomposition, but the documented history of abuse and neglect told its own story. On the 4th of February, 2026, which would have been Gian's 9th birthday, Kiara Sade Cotton pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and concealing a death. she was sentenced to 25 years in prison. The district attorney said that February 4th should have been filled with birthday candles for Gian. Instead, it became the day justice answered for his life. As of 2026, Cotton is serving her sentence in the Georgia Department of Corrections. 4 reports, 4 chances, a boy no one ever saved. The story ends here. Some of these women planned for weeks, some acted in seconds. Here is what we ask you to do before you close out. Hit the like button right now. Subscribe to this channel if you are not already. We release cases like these regularly, and we do not want you to miss them. And share this video. Send it to someone who watches true crime. The more people who know these stories, the better. Stay safe, stay aware. We will see you in the next one.